Today we are going to look at this video from Adam Something. Never heard of this character before. They have 439,000 subscribers on YouTube. This video called The Fatal Flaw of Free Market Capitalism already has over 350,000 views. I've had multiple people ask me to look at this, so let's check it out.
Imagine suffering a plane crash above the ocean with only you and one other passenger surviving. Both of you get washed up on a deserted island with nothing but sandbanks and palm trees. Once you wake up on the shore and look around, you notice the other survivor's footprints. Looks like he woke up before you. As you explore the island, you find him sitting on a huge pile of coconuts. Turns out, while you were unconscious, he went around and collected every single coconut on the island for himself. Coconuts that you would also need if you don't want to starve. Of course, you could go and try your luck catching some fish along the shore, but according to statistics, 9 out of 10 starved fishermen end up dying of hunger in the end. The coconuts are your only realistic chance at survival. So you ask him, can you give me some coconuts, please? And he says, sure, I can give you some coconuts, if you suck my dick.
What?
You are faced with a conundrum. Do you suck the coconut man's dick?
Okay. So, let's start off with the implication here that Jeff Bezos, let's go back here. Let's start off with the implication that Jeff Bezos is wealthy because by dumb luck, he stumbled into a natural resource, a lot of a natural resource. Is that what happened? Jeff Bezos just created Amazon and suddenly overnight Amazon happened to have a resource that many people need and are desperate for. Is that what happened, you guys? No, Jeff Bezos is wealthy because, and I know I have to reiterate this a lot. Seems like I have to reiterate this every few weeks, every few months. Jeff Bezos is wealthy because he owns a lot of shares in a company that he created. When they talk about the billions of dollars that he's worth, people like to make it sound like that he just has a bunch of gold or a bunch of a certain resource, maybe a variety of resources, just in a vault somewhere, and he's just hoarding it all for himself. But no, most of his wealth is tied up in shares of a company, Amazon, that he created, a company that's worth as much as it is because the market sees it as incredibly valuable. And understandably so, considering that Amazon is very large and has for years and continues to serve millions of customers, all of whom voluntarily and willingly choose to give Amazon money in exchange for Amazon services.
You're goddamn right.
So the framing of this is incredibly dishonest, but more importantly, you don't build a political system by concocting emergency situations like, what do you do if your plane crashes and you're stranded with a stranger on a remote island? You don't get a code of ethics from concocting these emergency situations. Now, you can apply ethics to emergency situations like this, but you don't get a code of ethics by just manufacturing potential scenarios, because the world is not a lifeboat. The world and existence are not just a constant series of emergencies and extreme situations. I'll give you an example. Let's say that gangrene develops on your hand, and then you go to the hospital, you go to a clinic, and the doctors and the medical experts there, they determine that in order for you to live and survive, you're going to need to amputate your hand that has gangrene on it. Now, again, this is an emergency situation. It is rare and extreme, but you have to amputate your hand. But say this happened, you would not then go on to tell others that chopping off your hand is a good idea for everyone, and therefore we should build a political system around cutting off people's hands. Likewise, you would not build a political system off of deciding what to do if you're stranded on a remote, deserted island with a stranger after a plane crash, because this is not a very social situation. It's not a way for you guys to settle disputes or disagreements because it's just you and someone else on an island.
If you suck my dick. You are faced with a conundrum. Do you suck the coconut man's dick? Let's keep this question in mind for later. My political views, and consequently my urban planning and transit views, are all informed by one overarching value. I want as many people as possible to live the best lives they can with the largest possible degree of freedom.
Not bad so far. I would add that everyone is ultimately responsible for their own life and their own survival and their own happiness. And especially with happiness, that has to be achieved at the personal level. It cannot just be given out to people.
In practice, this means that
happiness cannot be achieved second-handed.
every adult person should be free to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm others physically, mentally, or financially. And just to clarify, I am
Sounds good.
pro-choice. I don't think the fetus is a full-fledged person, so the mother's interests should take priority. So as a freedom-loving person, it should be self-explanatory that I support ideologies such as free market capitalism or even anarcho-capitalism.
Definitely not anarcho-capitalism. Anarcho-capitalism is an anti-concept because anarchy and capitalism are ultimately not compatible. Free markets cannot exist under anarchy.
Right? So what do these two ideologies entail? In a free market capitalist system, the economy operates with very little to no government intervention. Now keep in mind that we're only talking about the markets here. In every other aspect of life, the government can be very much repressive. For example, even totalitarian dictatorships can be free market.
Totalitarian dictatorships can be free markets. Wrong. Dictatorships are not free markets. For instance, let's use a concrete. If I were to go to a place like Saudi Arabia, I'm not really free to trade things like live music and alcohol and blasphemous cartoons. Am I?
Or at least lean towards it. In contrast, anarcho-capitalism is a system without a government, or at least a centralized institution able to effect coercion on you. Everything is left up to the free market and the people's self-organization. And I'm here to make the case that within a short amount of time, both systems would devolve into a horrifying authoritarian dictatorship.
Both systems would devolve into a horrifying authoritarian dictatorship. Now, that is true under anarchy. I won't call it anarcho-capitalism. Anarchy, that is true, but with free market capitalism, I'm wondering how he comes to that conclusion. If you just have free markets, it will just naturally devolve into an authoritarian dictatorship, you guys.
But how come these two ideologies would bring about the exact things they are designed to alleviate, namely oppression and coercion? Let's take a look. First at free market capitalism. And my question to you is your workplace democratic?
And my question to this guy is, why the hell should I care? Workplace democracy. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but under a free market, if a business owner wants to democratize his workplace, they're free to do so, although I don't see how this is necessarily a good thing, including for workers. I've worked many jobs that I know that were probably going to be temporary, and when I worked these jobs, I just wanted to go in and perform the tasks and operations that were expected of me in order to get my paycheck, and leave at the end of the day without thinking about the difficult business decisions and how the business should operate long term. If I thought that I was good at operating a successful business, maybe I just might go and open a business myself.
By that I mean, do you as an employee have a say in how your workplace is run? Well, not really, right? Maybe in like a very small business, but even then you don't have any say in the meaningful decisions. Like if there's, say, 5 of you working at a small restaurant as waiters, you can ask the owner to, for example, rearrange the tables a bit, because right now the layout is super inconvenient to navigate with a bunch of plates in your hand, but the outcome of that request is still completely determined by the goodwill of the owner. They can say, yeah, sure, how do you want to organize the tables? Or, nope, sorry, the layout is good the way it is. And for me, this is...
Yeah, I mean, it's the owner's restaurant. Just because you get hired to work somewhere doesn't mean you suddenly have a co-ownership in that business.
Like a little chiefdom, if you will. It's a small community, you got the chief running things, and everyone can just go and petition the chief personally if they want to. But see...
businesses are just chieftains, you guys.
Outcome of the request is still determined completely by the chieftain. Even if all 5 of you go to them and say, so here's a petition, all 5 of us have voted to rearrange the table layout, the chieftain can still go, yeah, I disagree with that, so too bad. We end...
You're goddamn right.
with a system where the will of the people will be taken...
The will of the people! Now, what if the will of the people decide that they want to violate my rights in any way? Maybe take away my money and property, maybe punish me for saying something controversial. Just a reminder, guys, democracy and freedom are not the same thing.
into account if, and only if, A, the leader is a nice person, B, the leader is afraid that some of the subordinates might quit and so they will need to spend more time and money on additional recruitment, or C, the leader believes that the new table arrangement will lead to more efficient work and so the business would make more money. So here, whether the will of the people will be taken into account depends on A, personal kindness, B, fear of losing money, and C, the promise of more money. So as you can see, this is not exactly the perfect
I mean, who says the will of the people is valid to begin with?
recipe for freedom. So what happens in a bigger business with more employees? Big business takes the concept of chiefdom and upgrades it to a totalitarian dictatorship.
Okay, so here we go. He thinks businesses are a totalitarian dictatorship and thinks that democratizing the workplace is the equivalent of freedom. When democratizing the workplace and letting the majority impose its will on the minority is fundamentally anti-freedom. Adam something or whatever says we cannot have freedom, yet conveniently disregards the freedom of the business owner to make decisions for the benefit of their business, and tries to get away with it by calling business owners chieftains or calling a business a totalitarian dictatorship. To hell with their freedom and their need to make profits and make money, because they're essentially dictators anyway. When in reality, there is a huge difference between an employer offering you money in exchange for executing some tasks on a regular basis, which if you don't do what the employer wants, the worst the employer can do is fire you. There's a huge difference between that and a totalitarian dictatorship where people are beaten, imprisoned, stolen from, and or murdered if they do not do what the state says. And apparently this is all the same in the eyes of goofs like Adam something.
As Bob Black wrote in his essay The Abolition of Work, work makes a mockery of freedom. The official line is that we all have rights and live in a democracy.
Oh, you hear that, guys? In order to be free, we just need to abolish work. Who knew it was that easy?
Other unfortunates who aren't free like we are forced to live in police states. These victims obey orders or else, no matter how arbitrary. The authorities keep them under regular surveillance. State bureaucrats control even the smaller details of everyday life. The officials who push them around are answerable only to higher-ups, public or private.
So it sounds like Adam something is making a somewhat of a package deal between fascism and capitalism, which is not a new phenomenon.
By the way, dissent and disobedience are punished. Informers report regularly to the authorities. All this is supposed to be a very bad thing, and so it is, although it is nothing but a description of the modern workplace. A great example of this is when major corporations try to prevent workers' unions from forming, also known as union busting.
All right, so employers have or should have the right, in a free market, they would have the right to decide who they want to employ and who they don't want to employ. And I'll also add that capitalism is not necessarily anti-union. And I think in a free market and a rational society, there might be a place for some unions and some collective bargaining. And I've always said that a good example of unions, a good example of collective bargaining being good for business, is professional sports unions. The NFL has a players union. The NBA has a players union. I think the Big Four all have players unions. And they seem to be doing a good job at making those businesses better for everyone, including the owners, the players, and the consumers. It's just that in a free market, businesses would not be forced and should not be forced to deal with unions.
A practice that is illegal, mind you, but they still do it anyway. For example, have you heard about this company called Tesla and its owner, Elon Musk? And to quote from a Vox article titled Elon Musk Broke US Labor Laws on Twitter, Tesla tried many different tactics to stop workers from forming a labor union. Tesla workers distributing pro-union leaflets in the parking lot in their time off were harassed by 3 security guards. A supervisor later warned them that they could be fired for distributing those leaflets. Summoning the organizers into his office, Elon Musk illegally tried to dissuade the workers from forming a workers' union. And, as leaked emails have shown, the HR department tried to put the organizers into management so they won't be able to organize a union on the factory floor. And then, once again illegally, Tesla banned employees from wearing pro-union t-shirts and buttons. And, also illegally, Tesla fired one of the organizers' co-workers who criticized Tesla employees who spoke out against the union-backed bill. And then, repeat after me, illegally...
Illegally? Reminds me of all these anti-immigration idiots who constantly emphasize that some immigrants are in the United States illegally, as if that's the fundamental issue at hand. And it's worth reminding that breaking the law does not necessarily mean that you did something wrong or unethical, because, as we all know, There are many unjust laws and stupid laws and ridiculous laws that should not exist in the first place. Illegal, as if what Tesla did were legal, that Adam something would just throw his hands up in the air and say, well, the law is the law, guys. Tesla did nothing wrong. Either way, businesses, again, should not be forced by law to deal with unions, which does happen in the United States.
Elon Musk tweeted out the following: "Nothing stopping Tesla team at our car plant from voting union. Could do so tomorrow if they wanted, but why pay union dues and give up your stock options for nothing? Our safety record is 2 times better than when the plant was UAW and everybody already gets healthcare." Okay. In other words, nothing stopping the peasantry in our kingdom from enacting democracy. Could do so tomorrow if they wanted.
Notice he doesn't contend with or contradict what Elon Musk says. He just takes it at face value. Might be a good reminder that it's never enough for these goofs.
But why?
These anti-capitalist goofs.
Get your head chopped off for nothing. Law and order is 2 times better.
You can pay workers $100,000 a year full benefits, and they'll still find something to bitch about.
No surprise there.
But then when Kingdom was under Louis XIII, and we already had the Code Louis. Alright, so at this point, what real choice does the employee have? Proponents of free market capitalism usually bring up the fact that the workers can just switch workplaces or, just move to another city. This is the freedom that workers have.
Yeah, I would say that it's ultimately up to people and individuals to figure their life out. Your existence does not place a claim on the rights and property of other people, including your employer.
But is it though? Changing your workplace is not an easy thing to do. I know because I've done it before. It's long, time-consuming, financially difficult. Chances are you'll be without a salary for at least a month. Not to mention how stressful it can be. Not to mention, the older you get, the more difficult it will become to get hired. I know people personally who tried to change their jobs in their mid-40s. Despite them being super qualified with a ton of experience, in a booming job market, it was still super difficult.
Oh, no, you guys. I did not consider the fact that it might be difficult for people to switch jobs or careers at times in their life. Just throw property rights into the garbage, folks, because that will make everything better.
Also, what if there's nothing for you to do in your area? What if you live in some small town in some flyover state with like 1 Walmart and 2 other workplaces, and you want to quit your current job because your employer wants to cut your salary to $5 per hour and increase your work hours to 16 hours per...
Cut your pay to 5... Did he just say that?
2 other workplaces, and you want to quit your current job because your employer wants to cut your salary to $5 per hour and
well, that's illegal because the minimum wage is $7 an hour.
Increase your work hours to 16 hours per day, because under free market capitalism, they are allowed to do that.
Because under free market capitalism, they're allowed to do that. Yeah, this guy does not sound authoritarian at all. But yes, under a free market, employers would technically be allowed to do what he just said. But it's often a dumb strategy because employers in a free market would have to compete with other businesses for labor, which in the history of free markets and capitalism often drives up wages while reducing the hours worked for average working people. Just because people are allowed to do something, it does not mean that the action will be 1, widespread, and 2, without consequences. For example, right now, everyone in America who is over the age of 21 is allowed to consume as much vodka as they wish. Does that mean that everyone is just blackout drunk all of the time off of vodka?
Trust me, there's a lot of things corporations would do under a free market system, like violating your privacy online or offline, or selling off your sensitive information for money.
Well, if someone is selling your private information without your consent, I think that might be a violation of rights depending on the context.
Speaking of which, today's video...
Oh, it was just a setup for an ad. If you want to support anti-capitalist garbage, just go to Atlas VPN, I guess. All right.
Opponents of free market capitalism. If you are out of options, your main recourse is just to move to a different city. Now, of course, this can be a fine solution, but we cannot ignore just how destructive it can also be. Moving to a new area can be hugely stressful. I know because I've done it before. Not to mention, if you move from some flyover state to, say, a coastal state, you'll be leaving behind friends, family.
Yeah, and the freer the society, the more options you will have. But again, I mean, this guy acts like people should be, free from stress, free from difficult tasks like moving. This does not account the fact that people move across the country for better pay, better jobs all the time. But yeah, just throw property rights in the garbage and let the majority impose its will, because that will make all your stresses go away, you guys.
Family, acquaintances, i.e. you will lose your social safety net and you will lose your community. And this is made
Well, what if your community is shitty to begin with?
all the worse if you have, say, school-age children. You have to take them with you. That means leaving behind their school, their friends, hell, even maybe their boyfriends or girlfriends, the teachers they knew, the neighborhood they grew up in, maybe even the grandparents or other relatives who also live there. Now, I'm no child psychology expert, but I don't
Yeah,
think
and
for some
people
reason
do,
that it's
again, people
particularly
do this all the time already for better opportunities. And he talks, he makes a big deal. Oh, you might be leaving, you might be uprooting your family. That's been going on for years. And oftentimes it's for a better situation. But especially in the age of the internet and smartphones and the ubiquity of smartphones and social media and apps, I feel like this is less of an issue than ever because you can stay in touch with your relatives and your friends that you might be moving away from. And even the case of a social safety net, if you need money or help from your family and you're 2,000 miles away, just a few clicks of a button on an app like PayPal or Cash App or whatever, and you can get help. But I would also add that you should probably work on developing your own safety net. Build your own safety net. Join a new community wherever you move to. Guy is unbelievably pessimistic. Like, oh, people won't be able to find jobs. It's too difficult. And if you manage to move, you won't find any new friends. You won't have a social safety net.
conducive for the child's development. The only group of people who would not be affected by the negative consequences of moving that much would be young adults between the ages of 18 and 25, who are hyper online, don't leave the house that often, and have very few to no real-life friends. And so let us now talk about anarcho-capitalism and what its proponents want to...
All right, we're not going to follow, because I'm not going to defend anarcho-capitalism, anarchy. That's not what I advocate for.
And guess what? Coercion happens to be the central part of any autocracy. So if your goal is the lack of coercion, then free market capitalism or anarcho-capitalism should be the last things you would want. And I'm confident in making this statement because coercion already exists in the current system, and it's not coming from the government. If your only choice is to work some...
It's not coming from the government. Yeah, try not paying your taxes and see what happens. He says this as if businesses and corporate executives are not constantly being dragged in front of Congress to answer for their crimes against the common good. On top of that, he's not really demonstrated how capitalism fails to remove force, just says that things might be hard and stressful at times. But it's not like he wants to remove force either, because Adam Something thinks that applying force is just fine, but only when the majority agrees on its application.
shitty job or be homeless, as is the case for millions of people, then I would say you are not really free. I mean, hey, you do have the option to quit and be homeless, but is that really the type of freedom you would want? And so let us now circle back to the original question. Do you suck the coconut man's dick? Hey, you're free not to, with dying of hunger as the consequence. And that I believe to be coercion.
And he believes that to be coercion. This and some of the other points that he makes, notably about the abolition of work and that life is stressful and difficult under free markets, speak to the fundamental issue at hand for many anti-capitalists, and that is existence is force. The fact that you have to work to survive is coercion, which is stupid, especially considering that work is necessary under any political system, including his proposed workplace democracy.
Blow it out your ass.
What if the majority decides that I need to suck a penis for the coconut? Or I guess in the case of workplace democracy, what if the workers vote that a beautiful secretary needs to give all the workers oral to receive her paycheck? Is it okay then?
You know, that's a really good question.
If you want a system with the maximum possible amount of freedom and the minimum possible amount of coercion, then if I were you, I would not base it on the current form of capitalism, a system that is autocratic in nature. But I do think there is a solution actually, namely workplace democracy.
Workplace democracy.
Give workers more control over their own workplace. Curtail the absolute power
Well, it's not their workplace. It's someone else owns the property.
of business owners. Let workers democratically decide how profits...
Now, notice, I'm going to stop here. But notice on the left, notice the picture of the preamble to the Constitution. And this speaks to something that I've been saying for the last few episodes, that I think a reason why anti-capitalists are embracing this workplace democracy strategy is because many Americans still reject socialism in name, but have been sold on this myth that America was meant to be a democracy. Many Americans think that democracy, majority rule, the will of the people, they think all of these ideas just sound so wonderful. So now you have people like Adam Something and Richard Wolff and others coming along to say, look, we love democracy. We just want more democracy. We vote on our political leaders. At times we vote on our tax rates and vote on other laws. Let's expand this wonderful idea of democracy to the workplace and vote on our bosses, vote on our pay, vote on how some of the tables in the restaurant will be arranged, like in the concrete that Adam Something used. They do this while dropping the significant context that government has a monopoly on force, and that the issue of voting for political leaders was meant to ensure that political leaders are accountable to the people, i.e. the consent of the governed, because America was never meant to be a democracy, because democracy is tyranny of the majority. It is not the same as freedom. And this also ignores the fact that business owners do have property rights in a free market, which these workplace democracy dorks definitely want to get rid of. Adam Something talks a big game about advocating for freedom, when the fact is you cannot have freedom without private property.